This is Theories and Applications of Organizational Communication, and today we're going to discuss ethics. Ethics are, in fact, very important to organizations. They help define why an organization exists, how it exists, and how it impacts our economic, political, social, and environmental systems. Ethics are, in essence, the moral principles that govern our behaviors or the way we conduct an activity, what we consider right or wrong, or just or unjust. Ethics tend to be based on standards of right or wrong in terms of rights, obligations, benefits, fairness, and virtues. Organizations are formed when individuals come together to work toward a goal or objective. And the way an organization responds to its environment is organizational ethics, the explicit or implicit guidelines and principles that decide how people behave in the organization and the code of conduct each individual within the organization uses. We tend to have basic ethical expectations for our organizations. When speaking of organizations such as companies, governments, religious groups, or formal recreational groups, do they create a decent product or service that is fair and accessible? Do they foster equitable treatment? Are the members safe? Does the organization tell the truth about who they are and what they do? Do they enhance our society? The ethics of an organization are very important for numerous reasons beyond the moral imperative to act in a just way. There are reasons that extend beyond this. Today, nearly a quarter of the workforce in the United States is likely to leave a company over ethical concerns. And prospective employees will consider a company's values and integrity when making decisions about employment. Also, consumers are increasingly making buying decisions based on the company's reputation. An interesting way to think about ethics is to consider where we think ethics exist within organizations. For instance, do you find ethics in leadership, in the culture? Historically, research on organizational ethics has focused primarily on leadership and decision-making, but it is also at the individual level, the level of each member of the organization, where ethics resides, so to speak, in the moral character of each member. And it has additionally been said to be found in systems and practices of an organization. Today, there is more attention to culture and culture's influence on organizational ethics and how these influence the practices that are found within an organization. For instance, how can particular structures enable or constrain ethical behavior? And how can seemingly good people make such unethical decisions within organizations sometimes? Or how can they show such a stunning lack of courage in holding people accountable for bad behavior or preventing abuse? I'll wrap up with some final thoughts that probably many of you are considering, which are who ultimately gets to decide an organization's ethics, and what makes something ethical or not ethical, and why do people blatantly disregard ethics that we've agreed matter to us? Well, the answers to all of these are complex, and I'd like you to think about them on your own and come to some of your own conclusions. But in a nutshell, many forces dictate an organization's ethics, from broader cultural contexts to individual behaviors. We tend to agree as a society on what we consider ethical or not, and that can change over time, and it has. And lastly, why can people within organizations or organizations act in ways that are so against basic ethical standards? Well, a lack of accountability, a belief they can get away with it, or the fact that they have gotten away with it, vices like greed, cowardice, even personality disorders, poor incentive structures, corruption, bad systems. There's a long list. But the important thing to remember is that we all have the ability to stand up for and create ethical organizations. And we have much more power than we think to do this. Thank you for joining me for this lecture.